I know some of you, but I'm Sean Brayman, the superintendent here at Waterloo. I've been here, this is going into my 6th year. So I thank you all for coming. This has been this is my 30th year in education. I can say without question, this has been the most unusual summer getting ready for school year that I've ever experienced. I keep saying every year to my family, that was a crazy year, it can't be any crazier, and yet here we are. I've said it yet again. I don't know how I can top, this is what we've been through since the spring, but I do appreciate you all coming in. And we're going to try to answer your questions tonight, and we're on Facebook Live, is being streamed in, and we'll be able to get questions that people are asking out on Facebook Live, so we appreciate that as well. What we have done, well, before I go on, we do have board members here. I'll point on. Heather Haken is here with us. There she is. Brian Misterri's here, way back in the back. Katie Walsh is here. How are you? Everybody good? Anybody? Any others? Okay, so thank you guys for coming tonight. And I guess we can go ahead and get started. The thing that we've been doing for the summer to get ready for this fall, we've been doing a lot of things. We had a parent survey, and hopefully you had a chance to participate in that. We've met with teachers several times. I've met with current district leaders of other schools in Portage County and in the Akron area. And if you feel like the whole world's going crazy, you are right. I mean, everybody's in the same boat, especially with schools. I know that for a fact. We're all facing the same thing. But if you have not seen our school website, check that out sometime. We have on our website really our plan for this fall. Our plan this fall, and I'm not going to read through the PowerPoint, but we have a PowerPoint that we put up. It's been up for a couple weeks. And with that PowerPoint, we talk about starting school in 3 different ways. Having a face-to-face start, going hybrid, where we have a combination of face-to-face and having kids learning remotely. And we talk about on that PowerPoint, we also talk about doing remote learning, totally shut down again, and doing schoolwork while kids are at home. Now, along with all these things that have gone on, we've been able to acquire through the CARES Act. I want you guys to know that, and I'm sure you're aware of that. We were able to acquire Chromebooks, something I want to do since I started here. We actually had the opportunity to purchase those through that at no extra cost. There has been some cost, but it's been very minimal to be able to get Chromebooks in the hands of our kids. So the plan would be, if, and some might say when, we shut down over the school year, then we would have the Chromebooks in the hands of our kids, and our teachers would be able to they did some pretty incredible things this past spring. We were asked, I think it was St. Patrick's Day, we shut down. The very next day we were expected to teach our kids and to move forward. And that was, you hear the old phrase when flying a plane and making that plane while you're flying. It felt like that very much throughout the course of the spring. But with the purchase of the Chromebooks, we feel like we can improve that if/when that happens again for the school year. But part of the PowerPoint also details with those 3 things, with the face-to-face, with the hybrid, with the remote learning. We try to tie that with Portage County's labelings, the yellow, orange, red, and purple, depending on what the virus level is in our county. And so we really if you look at that website, you'll see that we try to tie to that as best we possibly could. But I'll also say that, yes, that's a nice thing to follow. Are we always going to be that way? So if we are purple, will it be remote? Probably. If it's red, are we going to be hybrid? It could be. It might even be remote. So we're looking at using that as a gauge and to move forward, and hopefully it'll be yellow throughout the course of the year. Our goal is to, I know everybody wants to know, are you going to start in the fall? What's it going to look like in the fall? Our goal is to start school face-to-face. Okay, we would like that. It seems like things have been changed. In fact, Governor DeWine just made an announcement today. Did anybody hear his announcement today? What is that? Having face masks K through 12. That's right. So we are, and I went right back to my little computer and started tweaking all the information that we've been putting out to make sure that we try to keep that up to date as best we possibly can. All right, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about that. If you haven't seen the website, take a look at that. You can see the details that we have planned and what school might look like, and it's just a tip of the iceberg. Does that mean it's exactly what it's going to look like? No. When I've met with teachers, we're starting now to get into the details of how do we get kids into the school building? What will that look like? What will they look like when they're in the cafeteria? What will it look like when they're in the classroom now? You know, there are a bunch of things that we've been talking about and getting to that point to where we can feel safe. The primary concern for this school year really are two things. One is the safety of our students, of our kids. The second, the safety of the adults who work in the school district. And in the education and learning, that's always important, but in this particular year, our focus really has been keeping both groups safe. That's the primary thing. So we can talk about that. If you have questions about that, we can ask away, and I'll do my best to answer. I'm going to tell you that whatever answer I give, you're going to have to bear with me, because Lord knows that if you would have asked me yesterday what the face mask policy is, I would have said something different than I'm saying tonight. So, in other words, I'm going to tell you our answers, what we think will happen, what we know will happen, and some of the answers might be what I hope will happen, but those things can always change, so just bear with us as a school district, and it's part of the frustration of the summer and dealing with that not knowing, or dealing with, you know, the constant indecision. I'll say that. It's been a lot of indecisiveness at the state level. They're not sure what to do, and then in part that reflects back to the OHSAA with athletics. Our athletics are getting a different version from the state as compared to the Portage County health directors, and there's just been a lot of moving parts. So I appreciate the fact that it seems to me that everybody's been pretty supportive of the things we've gone through, and I appreciate that. I appreciate your patience. Everything we do, every decision we make, everything we try to get done, it's for the safety of our kids. Like I said, the safety of our kids and safety of the adults in the building. You know, that is first and foremost, and we're going to get there. I can't say that we're there yet, but we're getting closer and closer every day. And let me tell you, I go to bed at night thinking about school. I wake up in the morning thinking about school. I can't go, you know, I go home on the weekend, I think about it all the time. I've been obsessed with this and trying to help our people get this to where we want to go. A lot of credit should go to, I think, our school board needs to be thanked for the, you know, they really are very frustrated in trying to come up with something that is workable, and they're finding out that it's not easy to do that. A lot of credit has to go with our custodians in the district. They're working harder and differently than ever before, so if you know who they are, if you have a chance, thank them for that. A lot of credit has to go to somebody like Brian Munger. He's the one who went out, I keep calling them Ghostbuster bags, but he's got 3 Ghostbuster bags that he's using to disinfect and clean rooms, that we're going to do that in a much different way than we ever have before, we've been able to acquire temperature guns. I go in, the first thing that D. Lanham does is take my temperature just to make sure that I'm not high with fever stuff, and he's been able to get all these things, tons and tons of masks and gloves and things to help us stay safe. A lot of credit goes to him. A lot of credit goes to really all the people that have helped us move forward. It's been a very difficult journey, but we're not there yet. We're going to keep fighting so we have a great place. We'll continue to have a great place in the fall. It may look a lot different, but it will still be a great place because this is water that we're very proud of that. All right, so enough of my jabbering. Do you have questions out there? If you don't have questions, we can take. Are we getting any from Facebook Live? Already, they're probably telling you, tell the guy to be quiet so we can get a question. But we'll let you guys go first. Does anybody have any questions out there they want to fire away? Let's get going with it. Yes, ma'am.
I do. First of all, you guys face an unbelievable challenge. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
Sure.
My concern is, my son is definitely eager to get back into the classroom, and I know that, you know, the masks everybody has to wear the mask. Are you thinking, like, from a teacher perspective, they're going to have to talk through the mask? Right. To do that, or will they do like what you're doing, drop down the mask and teach? And I only ask that because, you know, sitting 6 feet from one person is one thing, but trying to speak to 30 students can be a whole nother through a mask. So I'm just curious, like, what your idea is.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Here's what I'll tell you, that we've heard over and over that the recommendation is 6 feet, the requirement is 3 feet, okay? But that being said, for teachers, and what we've been telling teachers, and I'll tell every teacher this, you have to do what makes you comfortable within your own classroom, okay? That's the most important thing. I'm not going to ask any of our educators to do something that they're not comfortable doing, and because this is not just any particular year. This could be a matter of life and death in some circumstances. I hate to sound melodramatic, but that's definitely true. So we do ask them to wear masks. We've actually been able to acquire very cheapo but very effective plexiglass, and really what they're telling us now that plexiglass isn't even enough. That you still have to have the mask on to wear plexiglass. That's just an additional help. The primary thing is my mask is sliding off my face. I'm sorry about that. But the primary thing is to have the mask on. Now, what we have heard is that when you're in the classroom, as long as you are 6 feet away, and we've gone through, in fact, Brian Pasteri and I went through classrooms with Brian Munger to make sure the square footage was there so that we would be able to be safe. Now, if a teacher is lecturing in the front of the room, that teacher would have to be comfortable. You know, if you're not comfortable, you got to have the mask on. You're going to have to get creative. But otherwise, you can't take that mask down to talk to kids. A plexiglass will prevent any droplets from flying out. But so they can, sometimes I know from a teaching standpoint, I still consider myself a teacher, but when you're talking, it's easier for kids to see your mouth move and to really gather what you want them to learn. That's a very important part of teaching, to be able to see your mouth. So there can be things done. Now, I will say, if a teacher's not comfortable doing that, keep your mask on and make the best. Okay, I don't know if that answers that or not.
It does. I guess my biggest concern is children who want to come back is being able to hear, because I know exactly what you said. A lot of being able to hear is being able to see you speak. I think they kind of work hand in hand.
I found too, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but when I'm talking to people and they have their masks on, I'm like, you know, I'm having a hard time hearing people. So I totally get that. From a kid's standpoint, from a child's standpoint, you want to be able to hear and see what their teacher's saying. That being said, we're just going to have to be careful. And again, if the teacher's not comfortable with that, then the mask would have to stay on. Yes, ma'am.
Along her lines with the teacher, what about the kids? I mean, you're going to have kids in the back of the room trying to listen, you know, intently, and then being able to speak because, you know, some kids are soft-spoken.
Right.
And they don't speak loud enough. That's just their demeanor. Right. And even a teacher can be soft-spoken. So, I mean, does the same apply for a child to be able to pull down the mask and to be able to speak? I just know my boy, my girls I'm not concerned about, but my boy's just not going to sit there for so many hours a day with the mask on. He's going to fiddle with it, he's going to play with it. So, like, just to be able to talk, if they're able to pull it down for the time being. I mean, it's not like they're going to, in class, you're there to learn. And yes, they do get close together once in a while. Right. But when they're at their desks, it's not like they're, like, side by side that they're going to be holding hands or whatever. So, I mean, will that apply to them as well as with the teachers?
Let me answer it this way. What I would say with that is, you know, will there be opportunities for kids to have, you know, mask breaks? Again, it all depends on that teacher's comfort level. It all depends on the social distance level. You know, some classes where you might be in a class with 12 kids, and you can have plenty of space, and the teacher can do that. Okay, but I would say initially we're going to have to be very careful and very vigilant. I don't want to say that it's going to be okay for them to take down masks to talk when we just don't know. You know, so we're going to ask our teachers and our kids to be very vigilant. So with that being said, you know, I've said it a couple times. I do recordings every Friday, and I've mentioned, you know, if you have the opportunity, especially if you have young ones, work with your children now, so with wearing those masks and talking with those masks. And that's not the greatest answer, but the more comfort they have with wearing those masks, they come back to school, and then it's not a huge mountain for them to overcome. But yes, certainly it's going to be a problem. And what we've asked our teachers to keep in mind that no matter what happens, we're going to have to be flexible with our kids. That things are going to be different this year. The big thing is it'll be a victory if we have kids in our building and our teachers in our building, and everybody's safe. You know, to me, I mean, forget about the school report card and forget about testing and all these other things. The thing that we're really focused on is let's just get our kids back here, but we have to make sure we keep them safe. So it is going to be a little bit of a challenge, no question. No question about that. Yes, ma'am.
I have a son who's autistic with a lot of sensory issues. He will not tolerate it. He will not tolerate it.
Okay, and so your question is that's
sensory issues.
That's a special ed issue, IEP issue?
Yes.
I asked Lauren, are you ready to answer? She was like, please don't put me on the spot. Here I am, like 3 questions in.
It's kind of I don't know if you can
gonna require medical documentation? I know we've heard someone, we already spoke about this, so I know we cannot tolerate that. So is it like, am I gonna have to?
Yeah,
list?
yes, and to add to that, we'll have to have some kind of documentation that we can work around that, through that. We don't want to put him at risk or your child at risk, and we don't want to put other teachers or other kids at risk, so we're going to have to get creative with that, but we would have to have some kind of documentation to allow that to go on. Okay?
The IEP for that isn't documentation enough?
Not necessarily, because we have students that have like, their disabilities, they just have a disability for review. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's very non-sensory based. So we don't wanna I don't wanna lump every IEP kid in that, you know what I'm
I get
saying?
it.
However, if they have a kid that they tell me and they're like, Warren, you can't tolerate it. Okay. I'm not gonna fight that. I'm very aware of the sensory needs that the students have.
Yeah, one of my kids was on the IEP. I would be very
Good question,
comfortable telling her she needs to wear a mask every day if she was able to do that. Yes, ma'am?
How many students, you said you kind of looked at the classroom and measured out 3 feet, 6 feet, so how many students per classroom are you talking about?
Our average, you remember the average, Ms. Terry? I think I want to say it was,
When we were looking at getting, at the time we went there, we were looking at K2 not wearing masks and trying to get 6 feet and have people class sizes around 20-ish.
yeah.
And then the places, 3 through 12, would be wearing masks, and then when they're wearing masks, we can go with 3-foot spacing as long as they have their masks on. And so we figured we could get 25 in and maybe even more.
Yeah, we didn't look at the average class, we just tried to maximize it. So there's a couple classes, right off the top of my head, just being here in the high school. Mrs. Dean has larger classes, and I've already spoken with Mrs. Sandell about getting something done, maybe moving her classes in an area where they'd be able to social. She's gonna have a hard time doing that, but for the large part of our teachers will be able to have proper social distancing. There'll be a few, we're trying to work through that.
A follow-up is, from the survey, is there more parents that want their kids to come back face-to-face than online?
Can everybody hear that? What she's asking from the survey, hopefully you all participated in that from the survey, did we have more parents wanting their kids to come back or more to be remote? We had more wanting to come to school, and it was, I'm going to say it was 65, 35, somewhere in that neighborhood to come back. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions
Okay.
about the e-learning. What does that look like? Is the classroom going to be like telecast all day, or is it going to be more like it was when all this first hit and it was just maybe a couple of touch bases throughout the week? And then also with that option, Waterloo doesn't offer a whole lot of options for foreign languages. If they're doing the e-learning, can they opt to take a different foreign language, maybe from someplace else? And if so, is there certain websites or certain ones that you're approving for them to do that with?
Right, we are looking into Jefferson County ESC for their online school that we're going to be participating with. That was suggested to us by Sumner County ESC, and that was after a lot of searching. It's amazing that the online schools get pretty darn expensive. I mean, we saw them all the way from $75,000 to $150,000. We actually met with the school district. It was going to be about $130,000, and they offered tons of electives, tons of foreign languages where kids could have taken that. We just can't afford that, and we know that. We weren't about to go that way. The Jefferson County ESC is very affordable. It's less than I'm going to say it's $3,000, $4,000 for us to participate in that school. So we're doing that. As far as the offerings go, we will be able to offer everything that we offer K through 12 here. All right. Now beyond that, I would say if your child is interested in picking up an online class, a different foreign language, for example, contact the guidance counselor and see what the options are. There are different places where you can, but you have to pay a little bit for that, but you can have them participate in online, in an online foreign language with another program. For us, it's just, the cost of it is just too much. Okay, but we are going to we will have what we have here K through 12. And for that, I'm very, very happy with that. Yes, ma'am. All the way in the back.
Do we have any idea
Oh, go ahead.
how that's going to look for, like, if you're doing online learning? Like, is it, like a teacher all day or parts of the day or?
Right. The best answer for that, and how it will look, I mean, it's gonna look different than it did in the spring. I know, it's gonna be an improvement. Part of that aspect was, the reason we got Chromebooks to be able to, in this circumstance, part of that reason was we would be able to get with an online school and offer assistance to the teacher. Our expectation is that the teacher will still maintain his or her class, okay? That online school will be used as a tool to help them do that. So, is that me? It's all phone up.
We're having some technical issues, sorry.
Okay. Let's take a 2-second break to see if we can correct the difficulties.
It's showing live on here,
We're okay?
but sorry. Just trying to make
Is it
sure.
okay, Mr. Stump, for yours?
Yeah, it's showing live.
Okay, we're okay?
Yes.
Okay, so we're still working through the pieces and parts of that, but the ideal would be if we had, we have this online school, we still want our teachers to do what they do in class. We still want that to be the driving force. But if we go into a shutdown, or if we are online, then they would have this, kids would have this tool to be able to access to help them along the way. Teachers would have something. What we were looking for was to have continuity from kindergarten to 3rd grade to the 10th grade. So we don't have this much work for the 3rd grade and this much work for the 4th grade and this much for the 5th, and on and it goes. We're using this as a tool for continuity. Teachers would still be in charge of their own classes and they'd still manage those. But on top of that, we're asking our teachers to be flexible with our kids because, my biggest concern is if I have 2 parents at home and mom stays at home and dad's working, and for the child to be online, then we can have them attend to their classes during a regular school day if we're remote. The problem is, like me, when I was growing up, I was in a single parent family, so my mother worked all day, so I would go to my grandparents, and I know, as much as I love my grandmother, she wasn't really that great at Algebra 1 or whatever. So I don't, my comfort with that is, it's just not a great thing, and we want to be flexible with our kids when they're in those kind of circumstances. So we want to offer them every opportunity to get to work, and that's the primary thing. It's going to be better, it's going to be improved from the spring, but it's not going to be perfect. The perfect thing is to have our kids in the classroom, face to face. So this is the opportunity to make it better from the springtime and work through that until we can get everybody back here. Does that help? No? Okay.
Are they gonna have a Waterloo teacher, and then if they're?
Yes,
Okay, so regardless of if we do online or not, they're still gonna be
That is
in the
correct.
Waterloo classroom?
yes.
And
Okay.
then we'll-
Now, if they do in fact, we have registration forms. If you do the registration form and you want your child to do online, that child will work with a licensed teacher from Waterloo. Will it be, if your child's a 5th grader, will that be one of our 5th grade teachers? Maybe, not necessarily. We're working through some of those parts, but we will have a teacher working with that child through the online school, along with Jefferson County ESC. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
So, a normal school day for the online kids, are they gonna have like 8 to 2:30? Is that gonna be their school hours, or are they gonna be able to do their online schooling at home when their parents are at work?
Right, that's a very good question. They will have the opportunity to do that from 8 to 2:30, but not necessarily so. I mean, if you're in a circumstance where you just can't get that work done, then we're asking the teachers to be a little bit more flexible and work with those kids and get them on a situation where they can still get the work done. Okay? That was a big concern. We had kids who were, some kids were just, no, that's not our biggest concern was when we had kids who just weren't doing anything. And we want to make sure we avoid that. Whether they do it 10 o'clock at night, whether they do it 7 o'clock in the morning, to me, that's not the big deal. The big deal is we want to make sure they get the work done, they have the opportunity to get that done. We're gonna do everything we can to make sure that happens. Yes, ma'am, all the way in the back.
So will you guys be providing like Chromebooks for the online learning?
Yes. Yes, I mean, that's a very good question, and I want to make sure everybody hears that. Everybody hear that? If you're an online student and you register to be online right from the get-go, you're still a Waterloo student, we would get you that Chromebook. Some have asked, in fact, I have like 50 questions I've got asked over and over again. I gave this to the board the other night. Here are all the questions I've been asked and some of the answers. And part of that too is, can my child still participate in athletics? do those things if they're with the online school? Yes, I mean, they're still our student. Now, if you were to withdraw and go to Odella or go wherever else, obviously not, nor would you get the Chromebook. But if you're still our student, then that's yours. All right? Yes, sir.
So I know there's talk of 3 different options.
Right,
2 of those options can happen at the same time. You can have kids in the classroom and kids at home.
right.
Is there any talk from the state about funding for teachers' aides to help these teachers who are already doing more than they're obligated to do based on their contract? I mean,
Great
we overwork
question.
these teachers every single day, not just in Waterloo and every school district. But you can't ask a teacher to pay attention to 15 kids at home and 20 kids in class at the same time
Yeah.
without a teacher's aide.
Right, that's a great question, and I would love to say that our ODE, Ohio Department of Education, is consumed with finding us more funding, but I won't lie to you, I know that's not the case, but.
I know it's like.
Right, but there is talk, I mean, we got the Chromebooks through the CARES Act, and we were very thankful for that. There is talk of a CARES Act Part 2, I don't know how for sure that's going to be, but we will definitely not turn that money away, we can put it to good
Is
use.
there any talk of like, maybe a free internship for the college kids from Kent State or Mount Union or Akron U
No, I mean,
to come in and
no,
help as a
We
teacher?
currently have about 7 of them coming in as student teachers right now.
Okay.
And I think in an online environment, they will be very helpful in that respect.
I just know it's a lot for you
Right.
teachers to take on.
It is a lot.
Having half here, half there.
right.
I mean, you have to answer to parents at home, parents at school.
Right. I will tell you that that's a great question, and one of the things that I've been consumed with is trying to find out. So what we do, we ask our teachers to do a lot. We ask our administrators to do a lot, quite frankly. And so I've been consumed with student safety and our teacher safety, but also we want to make sure that we're not, we already ask our teachers to do quite a bit. I won't lie to you, we do ask them to do a lot. And so I'm very concerned with that. It's a very good question. I appreciate that. They would appreciate that. We're trying to do it. So, we want to be able to have our kids learn and learn at a high level, but we also want to be realistic with our teachers and treat them in a professional manner. So yes, great question. Do we have any, the student teachers, that's not real, that's kind of an internship sort of, but as far as getting any funding for more, we don't see that happening. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to piggyback off of
Okay.
this question, and I have a question. I feel like the last time that the levy was put in front of the voters, we never got a clear answer whether it passed, it failed. I feel like we kept getting, they're not official, they're not official. What happened with the levy?
It did not pass. Maybe that, if I said that, maybe I was wishful thinking. I know it was different because of the absentee balloting, and so there was a little bit of a delay, but ultimately we did not pass it. Now, the time before that, my God, I'm getting the months all mixed up. That was in May, so the time before that would have been last November. We were very close. We were about 104 votes away. This May we were about, oh gosh, what was the number, guys? It was about 160, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we're getting close. Those are 2 very close times. But as a side note, not that I want to talk this in the levy talk, we are having it up again on November 3rd for 1.5% on earned income only. So please keep that in mind. We desperately need your help out there. And my hope is that all these things that we've done, feeding our students, we talked about that, getting Chromebooks for our kids, managing this to the best of our ability. My hope is that this is proof to our community that, we do a good job here. We do have a lot of great people that are getting it done. Is that worth the time of voting? Yes. I'd rather have us do a great job and have it be very organized and calm, and let's go from one thing to the next and handle it the appropriate way, rather than to go to door and say, please vote yes. I would like to say our actions speak louder than us talking to you. So keep that in mind. If you have friends out there in the community, let them know that we need their support desperately. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for online classes, will they be learning exactly the same as the students that are in class?
Yes, that's one. Did you see my cheat sheet? That's one of the questions I have on there, exactly. I've heard that a lot, it's a great question. It won't be exactly. Yes, in essence, in the end, we will cover the standards. They will be covered with the online school if they are separate from that. But we will do our best to keep it. I think the reality of it is, it would be very difficult to have that happen. but we're gonna do our best.
Then my next question is, because I've dealt with kids who have been online,
Okay,
and my biggest gripe with online was there was no text. Everything was strictly online,
right.
and some of the kids need that text.
Oh, for sure. When you say text, you mean textbook?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Will they
a,
be receiving anything like that?
they will have hardcore pieces of paper in their hands. No, but part of that thing with the Chromebooks, what we hope to have, you know, like I beg and borrow and steal when I can. Like I'm talking to my wife, who happens to be a librarian. She has access to be able to get into free sites where we can get 10,000 novels. You know, we can get so there are things out there that we can use this through our Chromebook, which is the great part of having this Chromebook, that they'll have access to books, to textbooks for different classes, to novels, whatever. They'll have access to that, and we'll be able to get that to them. I hope we'll get it to them for nothing.
And the other question was, when you went online, you were supposed to be doing so many lessons a week. And what happens with the kids and stuff, they don't. And then they get so far behind
Right.
that it's like, heck, I'm not doing it. So are they going to be more, not as lenient with that? Are they actually going to have due dates or what?
You're telling me to say that, you mean the teachers?
If they're doing lessons online and just say they're supposed to be doing 3 math lessons for the week. But what happens is they don't.
Right.
And then it piles up, so they get so far behind.
And then they say, I'm giving up.
Yes.
Right.
And even though they're supposed to do it, there was no repercussions really when they did it. Will there be repercussions?
Well, I mean, repercussions, that's a different kind of a word. I think in the traditional sense, we'd say, you know, I always have a problem when a teacher would say, hey, I'm going to give you detention for not doing homework. You know, I mean, my problem with that is, you know, don't punish, you know, they're doing one thing wrong, and now they're going to, you know, what are they learning from that? You know, they're not going to, what you want them to do is learn the material. So that's a different view that I have of that. But to answer your question, I do think what our intention is to have this be better. I mean, remember, we stopped school on March 17th, and then we were on our own to try and figure that out. And so we did have teachers who would give work, and kids would disappear, and that made me crazy. That made them crazy. So do we have safeguards in place for that? I mean, we have a couple of our administrators and Mr. DeVise and Paul Schmidt, who's an attendant, usually will go visit a place if someone has been absent for a long time. I'm already talking to him about, hey, we're going to use you in a different way. If someone is just disappearing from their online work, then I'll ask him to make a house call. You know, talk to the parents to say, what's going on with your child that's not getting it? Is there a different time? You know, can we access them to get work? Maybe it doesn't work at 8 a.m., so how about noon? How about 6 in the evening? You know, to have Mike DeVise, part of his job as dean of students won't be chasing kids around here, because, you know, we'll either be a hybrid, having half the kids gone, or we'll be totally remote. So his job will change, and he'll be enforcing a lot of these things and trying to find ways to get kids to get caught up, so they don't get so deep in that hole that they say, I'm going to give up. Now, will that happen? Will they still do that? Yeah, I'm not naive. We're still going to battle that, but we're going to try to do things a little bit differently to make that better.
I'm almost positive, because I know that I get them on my phone, that if you go into Progress Book, you can set an alert that says, hey, your child hasn't turned this in. Because I have it set up for my son, where if he's missing assignments, it lets me know, hey, I need to get on to him to make sure that assignment gets turned in.
And part of the beauty of going through Jefferson County ESC, it's tied through Progress Book. So that's good. I mean, we can tie all those things together, so they will be alerted, it will be different, it will be improved, it will be 100% effective. You know, I'm not crazy, you know, I'm not naive, but we'll do it better. I know that. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I have 3 questions. I have a son who is in kindergarten, and
Yes,
he has
ma'am.
an IEP, and I'm wondering, the first question is, what would kindergarten look like socially? And if he's wearing a mask all day, is there recess? Is there time are they actually going to be able to socialize and engage with each other?
Yeah, when we are here face to face in school, yes, they will. I mean, what are you talking about, being online? Will they socialize?
No, I'm talking about when they're here 5 days.
Yeah.
Just what will that look like?
Right. Our
Recess, will there be normal activities you would expect for kindergarten?
Yeah, we are going to try to have our normal activities as normal as we possibly can, okay? Now, with that being in mind, are we going to have art? Yes, but it's going to be different. Are we going to have gym class? Yes, but it's going to be different. I mean, we're going to have chances, are we going to have recess? Yes, we are, but it's just going to be, it's going to be different. We're in a different world for just this year. And the only thing I would ask of you is, you know, we're going to try to maintain that so our kids' lives are as normal as they possibly can be. But just keep that in mind. I mean, I'm hoping anyway that this is just this year. You know, I mean, that's the mantra that I've been giving the administrators and the few teachers I've talked to, that we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to have to work together. We're all going to have to be on the same page for this year so our kids can have as normal of a day as possible. I mean, will it be, you know, having masks on all day for I'm 53 and I can barely keep this thing on, right? So having a 5-year-old, I understand that there's going to be challenges with that, but we're going to keep working with it. So that's not a normal thing. But as far as the activities go and the socialization aspect, my hope is that we try to keep having those things the best we can. All right.
The next part of my question is, I'm kind of assuming, I imagine a lot of us are, that at some point we may go to 2-day, just being once school gets started and there's exposure, that kind of thing.
Right.
If you go to 2-day and he has an IEP, and I'm assuming he would hopefully still be getting speech with the various abilities, with reading abilities, I cannot imagine him doing the online. He would not be able to do the online. In those type of instances, would the school be willing to work with parents who have a child who just would not function in online so that they could still be in school the 2 days and maybe do a different curriculum those 3 days where they're checking with the teacher, they're showing what they're doing? I can't imagine him functioning online.
I'm gonna say this.
You want to answer that?
As, you know, IEPs are very individualized, so we're gonna have to look at every single student on an IEP to see how they're gonna best receive those services. You know, some students, I'm hearing, are thriving with the online curriculum. Others need that, they need to be in front of somebody. So I would work with you and say, you know, on those off days, are you coming, maybe? If that's something you'd be willing to do, and your therapists are very willing to do that, they've already talked to me about that. Our SPED team, for those of you that have a student on an IEP, are phenomenal. They're so accommodating, they're so flexible, we try to work as well together as we can. So please know that all services, regardless of what model we're going to go to, will be provided. Is it going to be pretty? Probably not. You know, but we're going to do everything we can. And I know Dr. Brigham has said it is changing all the time. You know, and I have the little site, the special education site, and I try to keep up with the mandates and all of that. But
So I would just get with you?
yeah.
I'm going to repeat your question. They're not hearing it on Facebook Live, so when you ask that, don't be offended if I repeat it. Yes?
So I know we all have to be flexible.
Yes.
And I totally understand that. I guess who's making the decisions? Is it the CDC? Is it the governor? Is it
Nobody.
the board?
That's our problem. Yeah, that's a very good question. The question was, who's making the decisions? Is it the CDC? Is it the Portage County Health Department? Is it the governor? Is that who you asked? Yeah, I mean, in my mind, you know, that's part of the thing that's made me crazy this summer. I think for any school district, it's what's been very frustrating. We're getting different messages, you know, and I mean, they're saying on one hand, hey, if you're going to have contact sports, they have to be tested, and you know, within what was the time frame? 72 hours, I think, and then from the Portage County, we met with the Portage County Health Director, and he's saying, well, Portage County is woefully behind in testing, and it takes about 10 days to get the results back. So I'm looking at the math like, okay, 72 hours and 10 days. I'm not really, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So slowly but surely, in fact, I'll tell you who do I listen to? I tend to listen to our governor. I think that, you know, right from the get-go, I was on his side, and I feel like he helped us all in Ohio navigate. Whether you're a fan of Governor DeWine or not, I feel like he really helped us navigate through some pretty rough terrain. So I tend to go along with him, and now at this point, you know, he was very good for like the first 3 months. In the last month or two, I don't know if he's getting pressure or if he's, you know, now he's wavering a little bit, and it's making me frustrated. But I tend to go with him. I tend to go with our Portage County Health Director because he's local, and he's here, and he's very consumed with the people of Portage County. CDC, you know, that's a nice guideline, but even they have, I think they're getting federal pressure, that they've changed their directives numerous times, where I thought it was very stringent at the beginning, maybe, you know, 3 or 4 months ago, to where now it seems like they're loosening a little bit, and that makes me nervous, because really what's changed? I mean, nothing's changed, and we still have the same situation we've been in. So, how's that for a non-answer? I tend to listen to the governor.
Is it the same with sports? Is it OSHA or the governor?
Wow. You know, we have to listen. That's a great question too. She asked, what is it with sports? We tend to listen to, you know, we follow the OHSAA for their guidance. They had a very good leader, I thought, in Mr. Snodgrass, who had been there for a very long time, and then he left in the middle of all this. And so now, sometimes I wonder who's running that show, you know. But along with him, or with the OHSAA and the governor, I feel like they're trying to get to the same point. They're just not there yet. We're getting different versions, and that's part of the frustration of, you know, when we meet tonight, you know, please don't hold that against me. I may say something different 2 weeks from now, and I will remind anybody I'm talking to 2 weeks from now that, yes, I said one, like in June, I thought we were on our way. You know, I mean, I looked at some of my notes. I started keeping notes on how do we open up the school year, and it was pretty. You know, remember back in June, the weather turned. Everybody was going outside. I felt like this was all going away, and over the last couple months, it's just gone right back to to being worse than what it was in April. Yes, more questions. Go ahead.
I have 2 of them, and you might have already answered. I just
Okay.
didn't understand, so I apologize.
Sorry.
But for the e-learning, with the Jefferson County,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
then you also said there's going to be a teacher here. Are they going to have separate teachers, or are they going to have FaceTime with both a Waterloo teacher and a Jefferson County teacher?
No,
or
when we say Jefferson, that's a very good question. Will they have teachers from Jefferson County ESC and from here? No, it'll be our teacher led.
Okay.
Only Jefferson County ESC will provide the curriculum. They'll provide the guidance for us to be able to be online, to offer. It's like a tool that you use to help our teachers do their thing.
Okay, so the kids will get FaceTime with the teachers?
Yes.
And then
Now what that'll look like, I'm not quite sure yet,
Right.
but yes, that's the intent.
And then the other question, you said the curriculum might be slightly different.
Right.
And when it comes to band, how is that going to look?
That's a great question. She asked, how will band look? And that's another guy I feel really sorry for. Mr. Cummings is a wonderful band director. He's done an incredible job. And in his second year, his whole band has been like, you know, on the rocks here. So he and I have met frequently to be able to make sure that we have our kids being, just like the athletics, to have them socially distant, to have them outside, to follow all the things they have to do to make sure that we're not going to put our kids at risk or put him at risk. He and I have just started talking. He wants to have band, and you know, that has to continue like he did last spring. He did a pretty good job with that, and he was engaged with his kids. He had them playing a lot on their own. It's not ideal, and it's not anything that anybody would love to do from a child standpoint, but he's committed to making sure that we have some kind of a band, and he's excited about it, whether it's here at school or if we would have to go remote, he's going to continue to have it.
So as of right now, though, they're still going to have band practice
Correct.
after school?
Yeah,
they would?
they've been, just started Monday.
Okay, great. And if my daughter's in band camp right now, so if they're struggling, you know, doing it on their own, they can get that assistance during practice
Directly from him,
Okay.
yeah. He's giving me that guarantee. Yes, sir.
With Jefferson County ESC,
Yes, sir.
is all assignments, all the online stuff will go through that one website, one source?
Can I help?
Yeah, you can interject, because I know you know about it a little bit.
Okay, so just to give you a little bit of an explanation, I'm sorry, I'm Mrs. Sandell, I'm the high school principal, sorry. I just want to make sure everyone knew who I was. Every county has an educational service center, okay? So ours is served currently by Summit County.
because Portage County doesn't have their own, so we use Summit County. Jefferson County is out of Columbus, the Columbus area, okay?
Right.
So during this whole, back in the spring and over the summer, they created an online curriculum, okay? So they took the K-12 standards for the state of Ohio, and they created, it's literally text and videos and things like that for different school districts to be a part of, okay? So all we're doing is using that to give to our teachers as a tool to help them teach their classrooms. So it's our teachers, it's Waterloo.
Yeah, no, I understood that part. I guess my question is, when, in the spring, when this went on,
We did
teachers
not.
chose whatever website they wanted to use.
Right, we did
for
not have that tool.
classes and stuff.
Right,
And a lot of the confusion, people brought up when kids fell behind, that's why.
right.
They're going on one website and they forget that this teacher has 2 or 3 other websites.
They
to
get
look
caught
at.
in that rabbit hole that we all get
Yeah,
caught
then
in.
the next
Right,
thing you know, you get a text from the teacher saying you're 5 or 7 assignments behind.
right.
Then they're frustrated.
And I'll tell you, that's part of
So
the reason.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so
are all assignments going to be one website, one page?
Through Google Classroom, through Waterloo Local Schools. But Jefferson
I
County
didn't
News
answer
just
that.
helps us with that content
Right.
and making sure that it's standards-based through the state.
And part of that was
Yeah.
from last spring was, I mean, that's what we heard, you know, we did a teacher survey, and we had a parent survey, and part of that was just being able to improve that situation. We saw that crystal clear, and that was kind of the impetus for going through this ESC, going through their curriculum. It's very reasonably cost, but we can still have that to keep us, you know, all on the same page. I mean, that's really the thing. We still want teachers to be able to do what they do. Still want them to have teacher autonomy. Some of the stories I heard, in fact, Mrs. Huth, I will embarrass you right now. Some of the stories I heard that she was doing, and other teachers like Mrs. Huth, you know, they were doing incredible things, you know. But there were teachers who maybe aren't comfortable with technology, who might need this. So we're going to offer them some help to use that. At the very least, to have that guideline, so we don't have a child slipping through the cracks or missing 5 or 8 or 10 assignments. That may still happen, so it's not a perfect world. But we wanted to try to make it a little bit better. That was the whole intent. But a very good question. Thanks, Mrs. Sandel. Okay, yes, ma'am.
But the e-learning
Okay.
said that it might not be exactly the same.
Right,
Now, say this corona goes away after the fall semester,
right.
and I decide I don't want my kid to do e-learning anymore when we go back to school. What's that transition look like?
That's a great question.
Slide right back in?
Yeah, great question. The question was asked when, not if, when the coronavirus disappears, right? Can I say that? Hopefully someday this will go away. When that happens, and these kids who have been online from the beginning, what would that look like? And I'll tell you, there'll be a learning curve. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. If they have been online and they got used to that world, and they come back and being, you know, walking in the halls and going to the classroom with the teacher and seeing face to face, that will definitely be an adjustment period. You know, the only thing that we will ask our teachers that just be patient with these people who have been online. It's almost like I would equate it with if you have if you move from one community to the next, and your child's brand new into school, and they've been learning one particular way, and then they're thrust into a different school. All the rules are different. There's a learning curve there. So every child will have a different reaction to that. All we're going to ask is just be patient. We'll try this. I mean, remember, this year is all about teacher safety, student safety. Everything else is, everything else is after that. So we'll work with the child, make sure they get on the same page. I think, and quite frankly, after last spring and this year, I mean, kids all over Ohio, all over the United States are going to be behind. There's going to be an adjustment there. A very good question. Yes, sir.
Piggyback onto her question.
Okay.
If you start off with the e-learning and then, let's just say this goes away, or we can come back to school.
Right.
Are you going to require those to come back, or are you going to allow those that were on the e-learning to finish out the year and give them that choice?
Wait, so say that one more time, Mr. Aspin.
If I'm going to use my daughter.
Okay.
Catalina is going to be a freshman this year.
Okay.
She's doing the online. She started online from the beginning of the school year.
Okay.
And after Christmas, we decide, the governor says, everybody can go back to school. If she wants to continue to do the online to finish out the year and not come back into school, will that be an option for her to do? Or will she have to come back into school?
I think we can make that an option, certainly. That's the first time I've heard that question, but from the top of my head, if a child decides to stay with that, and they've started with that, and they enjoy that, we'll finish the year with that. I think we can do that.
So the Jefferson.
Now, will I give a different answer in 2 weeks, Mr. Askins? I might, but for right now, tonight, I'm saying that's, yeah, I think we can, yeah, certainly a possibility. Very good. Yes, ma'am?
So the Jefferson County thing will be all through the year?
Correct.
Whether when this corona goes away or not?
Yes,
It won't
that is
just
correct.
do a corona. Okay.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
She asked if that Jefferson County ESC outline plan, that online plan, will that be around for the entire school year? The answer would be yes. Yes, ma'am?
I have a two-part question.
Okay,
So my first question is, because I'm still kind of like not clear by what you're saying.
all right.
If a child does like e-learning versus in-class learning, they would essentially have the same assignments, right? If it's
Essentially, all I'm saying with that is, having a child in class as opposed to having them away at home, I can't say that it's going to be the same all the time. We would ask our teachers to try to do that. The standards will be covered. I can't guarantee that because the standards have to be covered. All right, but will it be the same? I can't say that for sure. Just because life gets in the way, things get in the way.
And I understand that.
Okay.
So my second part of that question is, have you thought about possibly, if you do have some at home and some that are e-learning, maybe partnering like one-on-one, so that they can one
With each
help
other?
Yeah, like maybe one person at home,
I haven't thought of that.
one person in a class, to maybe like help each other.
Having like a study group if they can still be safe, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that that's a very good idea. I think that anything that we can do to help our kids be successful, anybody who's willing to do that, to be creative, to be flexible, to do something like that, certainly, why not? I mean, maybe that's something the school can promote, and we can push that or promote that. But some of that would be, that'd be the initiative of the kids who are at home, of course, but we can certainly push that.
Just thinking maybe it might make an easier transition
Yeah.
if they did want to transition back into the classroom.
If I could piggyback off of that, that's
Sure.
a great idea, and with the kids that are doing online, and some of the kids are excelling at it and some are struggling, if there's maybe an option to maybe have study buddies,
Right.
and encourage that.
Yeah, I think any kind of socialization is good, right? I mean, what I heard from teachers throughout the spring is that sometimes they would have a Zoom class meet or a Google meet, and they would try to teach, and it just became this thing, especially with the younger kids, it just became this thing where everybody was just excited seeing each other, and then the teacher was like, well, that was today, and I taught a class at the University of Akron, and I was supposed to teach a night class for 3 hours, and these were adults, these were teachers, and I would talk for 25 minutes and realize that they weren't, they were glazed over, they weren't there. So we would start talking about their cars, their day, whatever, and I felt like, oh, now I get it. I totally understood the frustration with that, but sometimes it's just people having that interaction is very important. So we can promote that for sure. That's a great idea. Yes, sir.
I have two quick questions.
I'm sorry, I keep calling the same people, so go ahead.
I'll give you the easy
All
one
right.
first.
Oh, good.
I know that the teachers have the option to wear the face mask and the shield.
Yes.
Are students permitted to wear only a shield? Or does
No,
it have to be a shield and
our
face
policy,
mask?
that's a good question. Our policy is we're going to have them wear masks because that's the safest way.
Okay.
Okay?
And then the second part is, I know with everything going on, we don't know who's in charge of what, but if we start online and at-home schooling, and you guys just decide, this is absolute chaos, we just can't keep up with this, are you guys allowed to make the decision that we need to go strictly online or strictly in class? Because that's a lot. You don't know what it's going to look like. You're already saying it's going to be significantly different than the fall was. This is a lot to take on.
It is.
You can't wait for the governor. Maybe 5 other school districts are doing great,
Right.
but
That's a great
we're
question.
underfunded. And
Did everybody hear that? I'll say that for Facebook. The question was, can you say it one more time? It was, if we decide to go a different way than what is happening, we see that there's just too much craziness going on, it's not working.
do we have that authority?
Does the school district? Yes. I would say that would be a decision that, that comes from the board, and I sitting with them. And that comes from that conversation, working through that. That's where it all starts. That's where it germinates. And then I would go and talk to the other schools in Portage County. What we've tried to do, we have a very good relationship from school district to district. We try to keep on the same path and try to make the decisions just about the same. And that's very important to us. We want the county to look like, okay, we are all being thoughtful. So if we were thinking that way as a district, I would certainly take that to the school board. And from there, I would talk with them. I would start talking with our teachers, our administrators, and from there, we would make that, yes. I mean, but that would be a process that we would go through and not be herky-jerky about it. We'd be very thoughtful and very deliberate in that. But do we have that? Yeah, I think if we find out that it's not going well, we would go back to drawing board. I mean, remember, our goal is what? To keep our kids safe, to keep our teachers or the adults safe in the building. That's the primary thing. But if everything else is going crazy around us, we're going to have to keep, you know, we're going to tweak. I mean, we're in unknown, uncharted waters here, so we may have to do that. God knows, I hope that's not the case, but we would if we have to. Okay? Yes, sir. Who's been waiting?
Lady in the gray.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry, I just.
You gotta yell.
Right there. Sorry.
For freshman orientation, I heard there's not gonna be traditional open house like we usually have. But for freshmen going into high school, I don't know where classrooms are, and is there gonna be some type of survey for them?
You want to? Have you gotten that far yet?
You know, we don't think we're going to have an open house per se, because that just, there's so many people that show up for an open house. I would say for freshmen who haven't been with Waterloo, certainly we can do, you know, for me, I would just have them come in, I'm here, you know, from here until, you know, we get started. I would just have them come in and we can show them around. But for most kids who have been here, I would venture to say that they know their way around the high school. It's not, you know, foreign to them, and there's literally one square here and one square upstairs. So it's not entirely, you know, out of the realm to think that they could show up on the first or second. By the second day, they know exactly where they're going. But if there are kids that, you know, truly have a concern about it and just want to walk around the building and see where everything is, I would just schedule time to do that with them, and we could just do it one-on-one. But like I said, for most, I think it's, they've been up in the high school before. It's not that unknown. But certainly we can do it that way. Yeah.
In other words, we don't really have a plan for that yet.
But we are being flexible.
There you go.
We will do whatever we need to do.
But I mean, just like, I mean, the principal just came back. Their first day was yeah. I tried to leave them alone. I'm here the whole summer, and they were, yes, I know, not really, but I do try to leave them alone and give them a break. And their first day back was yesterday. So you know, we were talking about all these big things, and we're starting to get into the little things too. But that's not true. I do bug you guys. But we'll get there. We'll get there with that. Do we have any? We have more. Okay, Mr. Stone.
Two questions. Well, one, piggyback on what he said.
Okay.
The first question. With all the schools that are already coming out online, and I know you want to be in school, I want my kids in school, I don't have a problem with it, but I think to ease everybody, is there a rough set date out there that, I know you're saying tonight we're coming back.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see it with all the schools that are closed.
Oh, yeah, a little faith.
Yeah. So I just don't want to get to September 1st, 4 days before we're supposed to be back, or 8 days, whatever it is, and then all of a sudden it's like what happened in March.
Right.
I would much rather, for everybody's sake of finding daycare, whatever, to get the kids figured out, in 2 weeks from now, come out and say, look, we're not doing it.
That's a good question. What he's saying is, do we have a hard and fast date of when we would say, we're not going to do face-to-face, we're going to go online? That's a great question. I think no. The short answer is no, I don't have a hard and fast date. But at the same token, I don't want to wait till, you know, if September 8th is the first day of school, don't wait till September 1st. I think that would be a disservice. You're right, I agree with that. So
This is something to think about in that.
Yeah,
And then my
for sure.
second question is, because my kids are in sports, what are we doing about this stupid testing? Are we gonna mandate that testing? I mean, my son's getting it done right now weekly, but when
Right,
he comes back, he's had that thing shoved up his nose for 10
Yeah.
weeks. He don't need it anymore.
right. You know what, I mean, we're meeting the Portage County Health Director tomorrow. It's tomorrow, Wednesday. We're meeting with him Wednesday, tomorrow morning. And where I'm hearing that there might be some clarification on that, I don't have an answer for that now.
Well, I mean, I guess if we're meeting with them, the question with that is, one, I mean, if I feel safe enough to put my kid in sports, knowing that they could get concussion, broken bone, killed, paralyzed, whatever, that should be my choice.
Right.
You know, and my choice that whether they're gonna have this or not. But two, okay, they say we gotta do this, who's paying for it? I gotta pay $300 for these 2 kids a piece for my 2 kids to play sports,
Yeah,
and the school don't have the money to do it, and
right. Yeah, I mean, those are great questions. I mean, I would say this, that, we're gonna wait to see what the health director says. I don't know, here's what I look at professional baseball, where they've got world-class everything, they've got money coming from here to the moon, and they're shutting down teams. They're living in that bubble to be able to play, and you see what's happening, and they're shutting it down. Basketball teams, they've all been living in the same area, where is it, in Orlando, I think, somewhere in Florida, and they've been isolating since July 20th, and they've been doing a little bit better of a job, but they still have had issues. And I think to us, here's the high school, where we don't have world-class testing. We're getting different versions from just about everybody. I don't know. I mean, again, my job is to make sure that we're keeping the kids safe. That's it. That's the bottom line. So my thing is, I would prefer to do that. Yes, I know some parents, in fact, if it were my kids, I said this last night in our board meeting, if it were my kids, I'd say, go to school, get over yourself, you'll be fine, But these aren't my kids. I have to look out for all of them. And I can't say, yes, parents can say if it's okay to play, I can't do that. I won't do that.
So, not just in Portage County, but are we watching other counties? Like, my oldest son goes to Columbia High School. He's going to be a freshman this year.
Okay.
And they go back August 25th. We're looking at a very late start compared to a lot of other school districts. So, are we watching other
Oh, for
schools
sure. I
like
mean,
Indiana
yes.
and seeing what
Believe me,
protocols because
yeah.
if they get canceled, obviously we're going to be canceled.
well, there's already sports programs that have been canceled. There's already schools.
Right.
There's a lot of schools that are already closed.
It seems like it's happening more north of us, but yes, you're right. There are schools that are deciding to go remote, districts that are going remote. There are schools who are saying, we've been recommended to wait until October 1st by the county. So
For sports.
for sports. Sorry about that. So I should clarify that. But point being, I don't know what my point was with that, other than the fact that yes, we are watching what's going on, and part of that goes along with that, us starting September 8th. I was, we're kind of like, thank you for that, because we can see and react to that, what other people are doing. That's given us a little bit of a breather. I like to consider us leaders and try to lead the way in this county. I think we have a great thing going here. In that regard, I'll gladly wait and see what everyone else is doing by the time we start. Yes, ma'am.
So going back to the sports, I know we don't know a whole lot, but there's a lot of rumors. My son's in football, and he's hearing rumors from other kids about how they're not going to allow parents to go to the games. Is this something that, like, Walmart is saying, oh, you don't have to wear a mask now, even though the governor says, that you should? So is this like we're making up our own rules as we go? Because as a mom of a senior, I don't want to not go to my son's game his last year of high school.
That's a great question. She's asking, are we just kind of, making things up? When you see a Walmart not requiring masks, and you see some businesses are being very, I am amazed if you've gone to any restaurants over the summer. You can go to one restaurant where everyone is, and make sure, I walked into Subway down here in town, and I forgot my mask, and I walked in, and they chased me out, and made me leave to go get my mask. And then I can go to another restaurant, well, there'll be this many people in a restaurant, and nobody's wearing masks. directs, and it freaks me out. So part of that goes along with, I mean, I like to think that we're not making anything out. We're trying to follow, in fact, part of that is what we do in this county, why they have the school district, we're kind of leaning on each other because we're not getting direction, because there's not been real crystal clear leadership, and it's not a knock on anybody, it's just the reality of it. So rather than just to make things up as we go along, we're talking a lot. I know that you met a lot with curriculum directors and special ed directors, and so we're all, because we're not getting really great leadership, we're all trying to learn from each other and make sure that we're doing the same things. So as far as the rumors go with the sports, right now, I would say a lot of that's probably rumor. I mean, the ideal thing is, other than what we know for sure as when was that? Was that yesterday when we were getting some indicators like what's a contact sport and what's not a contact sport? They were setting those protocols for that. That's what we're following. We're not saying anything. Yes, we've been recommended to hold on to sports until October 1st. But, as a county, we are, trying to gently move forward and make sure we have our protocols in place, we're being as safe as we possibly can, and we can have our kids have an enjoyable experience.
When's the deadline to pay for the sports? Because I'm not going to pay and then have all of a sudden I'm going to cancel.
Yeah, great question. The question is when do typically we ask all, you're talking about.
Pay to participate?
Yes.
Yeah, you're talking, the question was when to pay to participate fees. I mean, technically we're supposed to pay those before they get on the court, on the field. This is going to be one of those things where, there's going to be some bend, there's going to be some flexibility. And we'll wait and see how. I mean, I would say if you sign up to play football and you don't end up playing football, we can't collect paid participate fees when we're not having football, right? So if that has been paid out, we have discussed. That came up last night. We're going to refund anyone who's already paid out. That would be only fair, I would think. Yes, ma'am.
During the summer, then when the sports did begin, and then we got the call that they were good and they delayed it. Okay, so now we open up the schools. What happens if that situation happens in a classroom?
Right. Well, part of that, it's a very good question. What happened? So we did shut down. We shut down as a precautionary thing this summer because we hadn't been getting really clear directives. And what we did know was that kids were at risk, kids were being exposed, kids did have it, so we elected, the actual activities hadn't officially, hadn't had the official start. So we closed up the building to wait, give us some time to clean the facilities, make sure we were doing the right things, and try to find some protocols. We are still looking for what will happen if that happens during the school year. I'm not prepared to say this is what we're going to do because I haven't gotten a clear-cut message on what we're supposed to do. I know what I'd like to do, and we have things that are set in motion to plan for that, but to have that clear-cut message that this is the way it's going to have to happen, we haven't gotten that yet. Yes, ma'am.
I actually had a couple parents email me this.
Is that Katrina? Hello. How was your summer?
Busy.
Okay.
Lots of parties. Everything else. So what is going to happen with spring testing from spring?
Yeah.
This person said she had read that OEA is leaving it up to the districts. What is our plans?
Wow, that's great. If it were up to me, you know what I would say about spring testing.
Well, when she told me
Wouldn't
this,
we
I
all
was
say the
like,
same
oh,
thing?
I know what I would do.
We haven't, and here's what I'll say this, you haven't heard me mention Ohio Department of Education a lot. There's a reason for that. They really haven't been much help at all. And I don't mean to disrespect anybody who works for the Ohio Department of Education. They just have not given us any kind of leadership. And in this regard, we haven't heard anything as far as spring testing goes. I think I have been asked that a number of times, and that's in my cheat sheet here. And what I said is that we are still going to work and prepare to get our kids ready for some spring testing in the spring. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. I haven't been told.
Oh, she was talking about the spring testing from last year. What will happen to, because those kids didn't get to take it,
Yeah.
what happens to their score for like algebra if
Right.
they're not taking algebra this year?
Yeah.
Katrina, there's been no guidance on that,
been
and
anything.
that has to come from ODE, so we're waiting on that.
Okay.
Don't hold your breath. I think it's going to be a while. I think that my guess would be, because that does determine some things that lead on to other classes, and you know, whether you're a gifted student or what have you. I mean, there are things that we have to have students take testing, and so there really hasn't been any indication. She's right, I mean, there hasn't been more than one about it. I thought you were talking about this spring. My idea was let's keep kids ready for it just in case, but I would be shocked if we had to do that.
Okay, and then the second question, somebody messaged me. When are temperatures going to be taken? If a child gets, if we wait until a child gets to the classroom, they've already been on the bus and they've already come into contact with kids in the hallways.
Great question. So part of our opening up the school, if we do go face to face, you know, this is now. Will I give you a different answer in 3 weeks? Right, I might, but I don't think so with this. I mean, what we've asked, you know, I've been meeting with Robin Ferguson. She gets very nervous. She's very nervous for a good reason, trying to get our kids on the buses safely. That's a huge, huge task. Now it's getting them on board safely during a virus running rampant. So she's had, and I give her a lot of credit. She's worked very hard to make this happen. She's going to be involved in that temperature taking process. What we have talked about is this: kids, you know, we're asking parents, when you're at home right before your kids leave, take the temperature real quick. Make sure they don't have 100 degrees or higher. Put them on the bus. They get on the bus, masks are on. Everybody sits from back to front, so we're not crossing paths with one another. As they get off the bus now, we're just talking about kids K-8 who are riding the bus to school. Robin, Ty, Audrey, and I guess me, she threw my name out there, will be alternating as the buses come. We're going to stagger releases from buses. All right. Robin would be on the first one. As they get off, she's going to have a temperature gun. She takes their temperature as they get off, with the idea that we're not going to let the next bus go until that bus gets off and they start walking through the door. So we're talking about 35 kids walking to the front door. Brian Munger has acquired gauges. We're working on. We haven't gotten those yet, but to be in the door, so as kids pass by, they have their temperature taken as they pass by. We'll have an aide or two at the door, so that dings is being. So she's going to take mom or dad will take the temperature at home. Robin will take the temperature getting off the bus. As they come through the gauge, that will test them again, and we will have an aide there that if it shows it's 100 or higher, we'll pull that child away and have them go through our protocols with our nurse to be named later.
What about high school?
Now, with the people who are dropped off, we are going to have 2 aides at the door. We're going to have a gauge at that place as well. As they now, we're asking parents again, take that temperature with your child. If they're 100 or higher, keep them at home. It's okay. Keep them. We'd rather have them stay home than come to school. They come through with the gauge. If that dings, we already have 2 aides lined up to pull them aside, check them, put the gun on them, and go through the protocols. High school. We're going to have that area. We're going to have 3 gauges at 3 doors, and we're going to have that area where we have 2 people there watching the doors as they come through. There won't be, you know, I would like to add, I mean, I'm a father of 4 teenagers, post-teenagers. I don't know. Would they really think it was cool with me taking their temperature every morning? I don't know. I got a pretty good answer for that. But the idea would be to take your temperature at home before you go. If you're not feeling, I mean, certainly juniors and seniors, sophomores are mature enough to make that call. If they're not feeling right, take the temperature, you have a high one, stay home. It's okay. You know, you come through, you might not be sure, you go through the gauge, if that dings, we have the aide, or we've talked about maybe having a teacher or 2 here at the high school available. Pull them aside, check it, maybe even check it twice, because sometimes it's, you know, it's early September, it's hot out, they may be a little hotter. So you let them sit down, cool down. If not, get them to the nurse, have them go through their isolation protocols that we'll have in place. That's a lot of checking, and it's going to be weird, but we're going to be flexible. We're going to get this done because we want to have school. Yes, ma'am?
What is the purpose of checking the kids' temperatures 3 times every morning?
Just to make sure, to be ultra safe.
Okay, but here's the thing. Robin Ferguson, not my child's nurse. I'm a nurse. I'm capable of checking my own children's temperatures and sending them to school.
You are, okay, a lot of people out there who aren't.
Well then,
You know, and I agree with you, I'm not arguing with you that point, but if you're a good parent, doesn't mean a good person that stayed at home and didn't tell you this meeting is, right? Probably the poor parent who didn't get their kids online school and didn't get all their preps, right? So they have to do all this stuff, we all have to wear masks here.
Listen, I understand your frustration with that, and please bear with me that, and again, if it were my child, I would say, go to school, I don't want to hear it. But our responsibility here at the school is one, is to make sure, what's our goal? We have two goals. Make sure our kids are safe, make sure the adults in the building are safe. So that's my way of overkill, and it will seem like overkill, but that's the way, that's what we're gonna have to do. I mean, that's talking with the parents that I've talked with, talking with the teachers I've talked with, talking with Robin, talking with our administrators. I mean, this hasn't been an overnight thing, it's been a process of how do we make sure that our kids are going to be safe in this building, you know? It might seem we're not nurses. I mean, I'm being asked to make calls that an MD would make, and I'm like, I don't understand any of this that I'm being asked to do this. So I understand your frustration, believe me, and it's not meant to punish a child, it's not meant to make you feel bad as a nurse, it's not a disrespectful thing to you at all. Our goal is just to make sure that these kids are going to be safe when they come in, and then when they get to the classroom, our teachers know that they can do their job and do it well, and our kids can learn, and that's what they have to focus on. That's the goal. But you can see the things that we've been working on, it's insane. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you just said that they're gonna stagger everyone's gonna go to the back of the bus first and then move, slowly filter to the front.
Today I'm saying that.
Okay.
All right.
My only concern is I have kids that are going in third grade.
Okay.
So they've been sat in the front of the bus the whole time they've been going. I've been completely comfortable with that.
Right.
I'm not comfortable if my child is placed in the rear of the bus with an 8th grader.
Okay.
That's a major difference in age.
Our transportation supervisor said the same thing to me.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, really? But
Yes.
she did bring that up. She thought it was good.
I mean, there's a big age difference there. I mean, there's lots of things that 8th graders talk about that my 3rd grader doesn't even know about yet. So that's, I mean, I'm not saying that it's all bad, but even just regular things in life that happen, they don't know about a lot of stuff.
Well, and I'll tell you to add to that, it's a very good point, actually. I didn't poo-poo that like, oh, I mean, but we did talk about that. Another way of handling that at the end of the day was to stagger dismissal. So we do have 8th graders leaving first, and with the idea of getting them to hustle, get them out there, get on the buses, and then they go to the back. And 7th graders, 6th graders, 5th graders. So we do have the younger ones to sit in front. That's the idea when we leave. Easier to do that when they leave than it is to get them on the bus.
Okay.
Good point. Thank you.
My other question is,
Yes.
so with the 3 choices that you have, and I know you were kind of going with what color the county is and all
Yes.
that. So I'm an essential worker, I have to go to work, I can't work from home. So how much, I know Trumbull County went from orange to red within a few days, and then they went back to orange in a few days. So my question is, how quickly will those decisions be made? And how quickly would then they go back? You know, is it gonna be a week at a time? I just need to give my employer some type of idea as to how I'm gonna tell them if I can't come to work on a certain day.
I have that written down, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, so let me.
I know it definitely could change, I get that. I just, I'm curious as to would it be a week at a time, or we're purple today, it's Tuesday, but then by Friday we're orange.
I have that somewhere in my notes, but that'll be part of our plan when we get that out. That'll be the next thing we put on our website to have. Here are the finer details, and part of that addresses that. If we go purple, that's remote. I would say that we go remote. If we're being asked remote, that's a pretty serious thing. We'd go remote almost immediately. By that I mean the next day.
Okay.
If we go from orange, yellow, which one's the lighter one? Yellow, I guess, at the earlier one, to red. You know, there would be some days to be able to manage that. The one thing that I will tell you this, we're very keen on this, is that we don't want to flip flop. You know, we don't want to be like, okay, this week we're remote, then Monday we're hybrid, and then Wednesday we're back to remote, and then by Friday we're back here at school. Did you find that?
Question 30.
Okay. You don't want to pull your mask off to read it, so I'll point that out. Okay. If we move, okay, I do have this in my notes, and I'll have this out for the public to see, for the community. It's a very good question. If we move to purple, school will be closed effective immediately. If we move from 5 days to a week, we're going to school 5 days a week. We move to 2 days per week. The change would begin the following Monday. And it's going to sound like, well, let me explain that afterwards. If we move from 2 days a week back to 5 days a week, school would be open 5 days a week and no sooner than 7 days. So there's going to be some time that transpires. We're going to have a lot of communication to do that. Okay, one thing that I don't want to do, like I said, we're going to avoid the flip-flop. And that makes me very nervous as a district to do that. And I expect you as a parent to have proper childcare in the way and to do all the things that you have to do. It's not fair to our teachers when they're trying to plan for one thing and then suddenly they're doing something else and then back to another. So we're going to try to be as consistent as possible. The only thing I do know for sure is that if we go to purple, we're going remote. That's it, because that means things are pretty bad. All right? Yes, Mr. Askerns, go ahead.
This is in regards, we're supposed to start end of August, and now we're starting up September 8th. Those days that we don't have class because of the different start dates and what we're supposed to, are those going to be considered calamity days? Are those going to go towards the summertime where they're going to have to extend past,
Right.
I think it was June 8th, 9th
Because,
this year?
very good question. He's asking, what do we do with those days? We are technically we're starting at the same time, but just not with kids because we're working with our teachers for those 5 days. We aren't counting them as calamity days, because we go by hours in the state rather than days. And so we are following the hours, and with that, we are in the parameters of having our enough contact, more than enough contact time with our students. Now, this is a once in a 30-year happening, okay? So keep that in mind. Next year, when we're back in school and this virus disappears, the expectation would be we have our start when we start, and we go back to our days being our days. Yes, ma'am?
If, I know we have a telephone system, but if say we're at 5 days a week, we're at that, what is it, orange or yellow, but we're starting to see cases among staff, would you go to a different, even if, so our county is still at a lower level, but you're seeing more cases in the school, would that affect?
I guess can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure, sorry. So, say we're at yellow or orange,
Yeah.
5 days a week,
Okay.
and that's how the county is, but we're seeing cases in the school itself, where it's staff or students. Would that change whether we're 5 day or 2 day, regardless of?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
those teachers here.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's a great question. She's saying, maybe the county is yellow. Would we end up going into a purple on our own? And I would say, yeah, without question. I mean, there may be time, and Mrs. Sandel's right. I mean, if we have 15 teachers, we're having, we always struggle getting subs. And we usually have around, I don't know, how many do we get? Oh, she's not even listening to me. Look at that, she's texting. But we have about 10 to 15 subs from year to year. And so now suddenly if we only have, 8, and if the virus goes around, heaven forbid that happens, yes, we would shut down. I mean, if we have to go remote for the safety of our kids and safety of the adults in the building, then we're going to do that. Very good question, because we have talked about that. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question actually for Ms. Mandel. I had a senior this year as well, and I believe to finish with an honors diploma, he only needs 4 classes. Is he allowed to do those 4 classes and then leave afterwards?
Yeah, just have them see me.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make exceptions for specific cases.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Couple questions.
Okay.
All right, my first one is about Chromebooks.
Okay.
If we're all in school and not online, and we use them in the classroom, will they still be required to pay the insurance fee?
Yes. Very good question. The Chromebooks, we are going to have an insurance fee with that. We're not quite sure what it's going to be, but we will have an insurance fee that's just to take care of them, to be able to replenish them if something happens. So yes, we will. We're going to put them in the hands of all of our kids, just in case something happens. We want to be able to take care of that.
And if they do use them in class, can they opt out and use their own computer on that?
Can they opt out of using their own? We would like them to use ours, but if they opt out, that's okay too.
Okay.
Okay?
The second one is if we go all online,
Okay.
will there be some kind of requirement for the teachers to log on with the kids, like a minimum amount of times? Like, I know in the spring, and it was different, but now if we're making this plan to go online, I know some of the classes were way different than others that my son had and my daughter.
We talked a little bit about our WEA here. We talked a little bit about that. We are going to, and Ms. Sandell mentioned office hours. We're going to continue to do that. We would like that maybe to look a little bit differently so it's a little bit more consistent, especially if we're in remote, so that contact and connection is there. That's primarily the reason for the Chromebooks, so we can maintain that. That will be better. I don't know how it will be but it is going to be a little bit better than it was last spring.
And will the teacher, if we go all online,
Yes.
will teachers be teaching here at school, or will they be from home?
Good question. I mean, we've talked about that. Our expectation is that our teachers will be, she asked, will teachers be here? We're going to ask our teachers to come to work, even if we're in remote, to come to the school. I think it would be easier for them to make connections with kids, to communicate. Some of them did fine, and it's not that, oh, we're going to punish you by having you come in. I mean, I came in every day. I love being here, you know, and we do expect our teachers to be here because we are still having school. You know, they're going to be working remotely, but they would be doing that from here. Good question.
Okay, and then my last one is.
You had a lot.
I did.
She's
She's
had her hand up for like an hour.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Could temperatures be taken before the kids get on, like as they're getting on the bus, instead of?
You mean by the bus drivers?
Yeah, so say what if you do have a kid that's on, and he gets on, has a temperature, then he's already, I mean, the kids should all have their masks on the bus, but what if they
Sure.
don't, then you have
Right,
exposure on the bus?
I've actually talked to our transportation supervisor over that. I feel like there's going to be health risks if we're, you know, we just can't do that because there's some of our roads here are very, you know, get very busy and dangerous. So to minimize that, you know, what we're asking, if they do it at home, and when they get on the bus, we're assuming that they have been. Now, you know, I mean, could we give the temperature guns to bus drivers, and if they see someone who may not be feeling well, could they do it? Sure, they can certainly do that. We're going to give them, you know, we'll give them the access to that, possibly. You know, but for us to say as a school policy, are we going to have bus drivers do that? No.
They probably legally can't do that because they're CDO.
Right. There might be, yeah, there's,
Driving.
I got blocked heavy when I talked about that, so that's probably part of that. Yes?
I
Yeah.
have two questions, and it might seem odd, but, I only have one child, right, well, all mine are in middle school or high school. School supplies, for those that are at home, do we still have to obtain all the school supplies if we do online learning? I know that you said that there might be somewhat of a difference with the learning style
Right.
from here in school and with online learning.
Yeah.
Are we still required to purchase the same supplies? I know it sounds odd. but
No, it
I
doesn't
think
sound
that-
odd, and we've talked about that. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
You know, we have talked about that. There will be some, it'll be different somehow, I just don't know exactly how it will be.
And
We
then-
have talked about, just so you know, like for art classes and things like that,
Right, 'cause my
we've
sister-
talked about the supplies being available, so when they come to pick up the Chromebook,
Okay.
they would pick up the supplies that they need for that particular class. Are we going to give them acid for chemistry class? No. But we're talking about how to make that possible so that if they're online and they're taking a class that needs specific supplies, that they would have those.
My last question.
Okay.
I know gym is a requirement for like high schoolers and middle schoolers, and you know, we have recess and all that. In gym, are they required to wear a mask? Because if they're running, I know that people can pass out from wearing a mask running,
Right.
you know, if you're in heat or whatever.
Right.
So do you know what the standards are going to be for that? And what's going to happen if you're doing online and I have a freshman that is required to take gym?
Yeah.
What
good
happens
point.
then?
Yeah, the question for you guys, if you're not hearing that too on Facebook, is what do we do with phys ed? You know, there are guidelines they have to follow. I mean, and it's going to be a lot different than the normal gym class. And fortunately, we have some pretty good phys ed teachers that get really creative with that. Will they have to have their mask on? Not necessarily, but they're going to have to make sure they're socially distant, outside when possible, and away from each other. And can Mrs. Dennison from the high school, can she conduct her gym class that way? Yes. Now, when the weather changes, that'll be a little bit more difficult to do that. So maybe there will be times when they have to have their masks on, but we're not gonna have them push until they pass out. You know, she's a tough lady, but not that tough. Yeah.
We've already talked about that a little bit. We are
Okay.
going to have to change the type of exercises that they do.
So then what would the online requirement be for gym? I mean,
Yeah, online's going to look a little
She did
different,
a lot
for
of
sure.
different things with the kids, right?
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
did like their own little physical things, like they would record themselves doing 20 push-ups, and then they would do a checklist of different exercises that they did that day. It is very different, I'm not
And
gonna.
a lot of that comes from Mrs. Dennison. I mean, kids, they were like being with Mrs. Dennison, so that's where that connection comes from. You have a great connection with kids. The kids are going to do that because they like their teacher. I mean, if you go, hey, run 2 miles and tell me your time, and I'll count this day, I mean, is every child gonna do that? I don't know, but if they like her, and they have a good connection with her, the chances for that certainly improve, and they do. All right, good question.
So the Chromebooks, you guys actually have Chromebooks for every student?
Yes, 850.
So are they, once they get a Chromebook assigned, are they taking that home to do their homework and everything else?
That is correct.
6 through 12.
Right, the K through, you guys tell me this, the K through second grade, it'll be different, different kind of, because they're gonna be different kind of learning. Have you seen those?
They're a touch screen.
Yeah, they're more touchscreen for the younger kids. We are gonna keep them here for them, and did we decide on the rest of the middle school, or the rest of the
I thought it was
elementary?
K-5 will stay in the classrooms, but then the 6-12 kids will be able to take them home. Now, if we're all remote, then everybody takes them home.
Sure. We got that middle school and high school kids will be, you know.
That's the answer for today.
Okay, knock on wood, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So speaking of the Chromebooks, like,
Okay.
so say you go remote or you choose remote learning for your child, is it like before school, you're gonna be able to pick up the Chromebook with some kind of instruction packet, like this is how you're gonna log in on day one?
Yes.
Because last year what kind of ended up happening, yeah, like an orientation kind of packet, you know, then I was like, I had Zoom for one and Google Classroom for somebody else and Seesaw, and I had like 6 different things all at once, and I was like, listen, like.
We just had a meeting about that yesterday, as a matter of fact. It'll be much like, almost like an orientation. You'll come in, and we have it all spaced out so that, you know, everybody's not here together. You'll pick up your Chromebook, you'll go into the gym, there's a video, a presentation, like how you as a parent log in, what it looks like, and then you'll actually sign it out at a table, then you'll bring it into here, and you'll actually log in so that we can make sure the battery works, the computer works, your login works. We'll have people here to reset your passwords, that kind of thing, so that before you leave, you'll have the Chromebook, you'll have signed it out, you'll have instructions, and you'll have logged in already, so that all of that works before you walk out the door.
And
So
then
we're working on all of that.
Perfect. So then, like, if you're choosing online, will you know, like, okay, you need to be online at 8 a.m. for this?
We're talking
and
about
go from there.
synchronous versus asynchronous, so are we going to have specific times that the child has to be watching the class, or is it all going to be videoed or available at a later time? Because, you know, 9:30 in the morning for a high schooler, can that same work happen at 9:30 at night? Those are the kinds of things that we're working through so that you have that schedule.
Good, that's good, because that's been my concern is, you know, a parent, like, I'm very lucky, I have a ton of flexibility in my work schedule, I can work whenever, but I still do need to work some. at
Yeah,
home
that
during the
synchronous
day.
piece is hard, yeah.
Yeah, so if you have some kind of idea of when that's gonna be, or.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Then part of that is that flexibility thing that we talked about. I mean, the ideal would be to say, okay, the expectations are that I'm going to be teaching, you know, I'll be teaching English from 8 o'clock to 8:45, so you need to be up, you know, but the sad fact of the matter is that some kids have homes where that's just not going to be happen, you know, and rather than to lose that child and have them suddenly they're eight assignments behind because they're not getting up and they're on their own, or both parents work, or one parent works and they're at home. I mean, it's not, I don't want to penalize a child because of circumstances beyond his or her control. So we're going to try our best to keep things in line with what our teachers are doing when they do it, but I'm also asking them to, you know, be flexible, be patient, let's work with the kids so nobody gets behind, you know.
I mean, I have a kindergartner, so it's gonna have to be led by, you know.
Yeah.
Somebody that's home, and that may not be at 9 o'clock in the
Obviously, it
morning.
would be different for.
Yeah.
For sure.
Every case is going to be unique, and we're going to have to do our best to have some understanding of that and make sure those child's needs are met. And I think even as we were, you know, lost in space at times, we just kind of got thrown into this whirlwind last year. I thought we did a pretty darn good job. Our teachers did an excellent job of meeting the needs. Now, was it perfect? No, really, quite frankly, nor should it be. Even with these circumstances, it's not going to be perfect. But we want to get better than where we were, and I think we are. I think we will be, and we want to continue to get better, especially if we go into remote again for an extended period of time. We want to make sure that we're going in the right direction for sure.
Do they,
Yes.
is this program, if we go online, that you do online, like, my kids have computers, do we have to use the Chromebooks, or can we use our own?
Use your own. use your own, sure. Yes, ma'am?
When the kids are in school, the ones that are choosing their 5 days, is it gonna run like normal, though? And with all the time it's taking, I'm sure that's gonna take a chunk of time.
Yeah.
Are classes really short, do they still switch between, do they still have a regular lunch period?
As
Yeah,
much as
great.
possible,
Yeah,
yes.
we're gonna try,
Okay.
right,
We
we're
might
gonna
have
try.
to extend some time so that we have, more time between classes, so they're not all switching at exactly the same time, or we might need to, extend or lessen the lunch period, like, we'll be flexible within that day, but yeah, they're still gonna go through their day.
I mean, we're not gonna foster chaos or allow people roaming all over the hall. The expectations, they're gonna move quickly. Now, for the first couple of days, when we're taking the temperatures and doing our process to get our kids to class, that will be a learning curve, and that may take some time the first couple of days, but this, kids are amazingly adaptable, they roll with it. We implemented a cell phone policy last year, and that went through pretty quickly, and we're lucky in that regard, that our kids are pretty good kids, and our teachers have that expectation, and they let the kids know that this is the way it's gonna be, and they repeat that, and model that. Our kids will, by and large, not always, but by and large, will go along with that. So yes, it will be a little rough at first, but we don't want to have chaos. We want to have a good rhythm to our school day, so it does feel like a normal day, but it won't be. That it's going to take some time. Yes, sir.
If the kids are in classes, what is your plan about cleaning and disinfecting classes throughout the day?
Great question.
Between classes?
What do we do? I mean, we've talked a lot, and there's been a lot of that. I've talked with Ms. Munger about this numerous times. This is part of that Ghostbuster bag, and he's got the stuff that we can just. He's telling me that if you do it one time at night, you come in, you spray the room down, it disinfects, sanitizes the room, and you're good for a day. But we are going to do that. Okay? But more. We're not going to ask the teachers to clean every desk. We're not asking every kid to get the handy wipes and wipe down. Primarily, there's just not enough of those handy wipes out there anymore. But the things that we do have in place, we will be able to keep that room safe. That disinfectant will last. We'll keep things clean. But there will be times when things happen where they're going to have to clean a desk, but have that be the normal part of every day between every period. In my mind, that's absurd. That's overkill. We don't need to do that. If kids are wearing their masks, we're keeping socially distant. We're disinfecting and sanitizing the room. We're using the Perel like crazy, which we bought. We got 4 55-gallon drums, and Mr. Munger assures me that there's going to be more coming. We have the masks coming. We'll be able to do those things to be as safe as we possibly can.
Shanti, also, and maybe you can speak to this more, we also talked about he's doing something with our ventilation system, where it's pumping the data outside of you. Do you remember him talking about this yesterday? He spoke for probably 15 minutes about the different things that he's been doing. He's been extremely.
All the filters have been changed to HEPA filters with the.
The UV lighting is going to be a little bit different. And so I'm like, okay, no, I don't know what you sound kind of strange talking about UV lighting, but he's saying that he's right. So he's actually trying to change the air circulation, the UV lighting in our building, to do as much as we can to make sure every base is being covered, that we're being safe as we possibly can. Yes, ma'am.
So regarding your hand sanitizer and Purell, are we going to actually be doing hand washing?
Oh, for sure.
And what is my option if, instead of overuse of Purell, I would like my children to be washing their hands with soap and water, as is best practice?
Yes, we will have the opportunity to do that. We have placed more soap stands in the restrooms, more Perel stands around the school. What do you say? That we got like 20 more, and they're not that expensive, but we are going to have them strategically placed throughout the restrooms and the hand Perel in strategic places throughout the halls, so kids will have access to do that.
No, that's my question.
Yes, with the soap. I'm talking.
I have elementary school children. They don't need to Purell their hands 100 times a day.
Okay.
If they need to wash their hands, they need to use soap and water.
Okay. We will have that opportunity for them.
A lot of them
things in the classrooms.
A lot of them do have sinks. A lot of the classrooms do have sinks right in the classrooms that teachers will allow them to use. So that's definitely a possibility.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there an IT support plan to go along with those Chromebooks if something starts to go wrong?
I'm sorry.
An IT support plan for the Chromebooks?
Chromebooks?
We do. In fact, we are going to, that's a great, I guess, we've been here for an hour and a half, going on 2 hours, so we can start winding this down. Part of that, our next board meeting will be on August 13th. 13th, we are going to be, I'm going to be submitting, or have submitted a tech plan to our board for that to be approved for district use. Yes, ma'am?
Back to the Chromebooks, now, they're gonna be using Chromebooks on the classroom environment for part of their education, the ones that come to school. Are, as parents, are we gonna get a login so we can all say they're in school, we wanna monitor their progress as they're doing it because they're monitoring?
You will have access to do that, and that's a great question. Will we be able to monitor the use on these Chromebooks? Actually,
We're monitoring what's going on in the classroom. We can see their progress without having to come in and wait for a report or anything.
Okay, tell me if I'm answering your question. Matt Dockery's our IT guy. In fact, is he here? He's here somewhere. But he is going to be able to monitor. He's got programs set up to be able to monitor what kids are doing. If there's any language that comes up.
Well, I'm not saying like that. I'm saying that they're not doing their work in class. As parents, being responsible parents, we're watching to see that they're doing their stuff.
Okay, now you're talking about schoolwork.
Yes, schoolwork.
Right, well, part of that, the idea would be that we do have progress book, whether they're here in class with a child with their teacher face to face. The teachers often will enter information on the progress book. If your child would happen to be online, the program that we're using also is associated with progress book. You'll be able to access their schoolwork and find out where they're at. Now, if you get on it and you're not seeing anything, what I would suggest that you do is to contact that child's teacher and say, hey, I haven't seen any grades. Is my child doing any work? You know, what's going on? And generally, teachers are really good about updating that, but for whatever reason, if that's not happening, you give that teacher a call and you can get it straightened out pretty quickly. All right. So we do have our board meeting on the 13th. We're going to board approve, hopefully, the technology handbook that'll go along with the Chromebook. We'll have that posted on our website so you'll be able to access that anytime. We're also looking at our student handbook. We'll have that on there as well. Also, our school plans. We've put the school plans out with this PowerPoint, but some of the minutiae, so more and more details as they continue to develop, we'll have that also to be board approved so you can have access and see that as well. All right. Beyond that, I'm here all the time. You can call me at school. My cell phone number has been posted out there, 330-573-9024. You can call me anytime, right, or text me, as long as you're not yelling at me. Bill Stubbs, did you hear that? No. Even then, I still get back to you. All right, but if you need to get a hold of me for anything, you can do that. If you have questions throughout the course, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you, but if you have questions for any part of this, what we're doing, our plans, or you're just not sure, you know, our job is to make sure you feel safe with your child coming to school, whether it be face-to-face or remote, or a combination thereof, so we want to make sure we meet those needs. So call me, or text me, or stop by the board office, talk to the principal, talk to the teachers. The teachers are really the best bet. They're with your child all the time, and they're doing some great things. So communicate those needs with your teacher, and we'll make sure they get met. All right? I guess that's it. Anything else? We've answered a lot. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Have a great night. Thank you.